This lesson is for NCP 302. Our focus skill for today is to identify a digit's place value in conjunction with other skills. You're going to see some word problems, and you're also going to see some rounding in this section. So let's begin first with this very large number here. Now this number has a bunch of different place values, okay? So we have a bunch of digits here. Each one of these is a digit. So 1 is a digit, 3 is a digit, 4 is a digit, 2 is a digit, etc. Now each of these has a different place value. Now I would read this as 1,342,365. This decimal here would be read as 1,427 thousandths. It's kind of hard to say, but there's actually a TH at the end of what I'm saying. So let's go through and just go through the place values. I want you to write this down on your note sheet. Make sure you keep this in a safe place because this is something you're going to refer to quite often in our skill sheets. Okay, our first digit here, 1. This is the millions place. Our 3 here is in the hundred thousands place. So make sure you get the spelling right here. So in other words, if I had not seen the 1 here, let's say this number did not have the 1 in front, I would read this as 342,000. Okay, so far, so good. Now the 4 here is in the 10,000s place. We have the thousands place. The 3 is in the hundreds place. We have a 6 in the tens and a 5 in the ones place. Now when we move past here, this is our decimal point. When we move to our decimal, we see some very similar numbers. Now this first digit, the first digit after your decimal place is the tenths place. So I'm trying to pronounce that th sound here. You're going to see that it looks like a 10, but just adding the th to it. So we have the tenths place. And then moving this way to the right, it's similar to this one here, left of the tens. We now have the hundredths place. Okay, so it's spelled just like hundred, but adding a th to it. Now, if you're picking up on the pattern, the next one would look like the thousand, but instead it has a th at the end, so this is the thousandths place. Okay, and then moving one more to the right would be like moving one left here. So we have the 10,000ths place. Okay, so I want you to be very familiar with these here so that you guys can round correctly. All right, now problem 1 here is a problem similar in your skill sheets where it asks you to write a number that's written out in words and write it in standard notation. So this number here is written here in standard notation. So we want to convert something that's written in words into standard notation. So we have the number 86,422 and 16 hundredths. So I'm going to start with this 86,000. Now if it's 86,000, I'm going to start with 86 and then show that I have the thousands place here, right? 86,000. But then I have this afterwards, 422. Now 422 looks like this, and I'm going to replace these zeros here with the number 422. So far I have 86,422, and then it says 16 hundredths. Sorry about that, hundredths. All right, now the fact that it ends in this THS means that it's going to be actually after the decimal. So we have our decimal point here. So this is a big clue to me that I'm going to have a decimal after that. And then I'm going to write 16 just as the normal number 16 because I know that this is ending in the hundredths place, right? If we go back up to here, this is the second decimal place. That second decimal place is the hundredths place. So this would be the number 86,422 and 16 hundredths written in standard form. Okay, so that's standard notation right there. Now in problem 2, it asks us very similarly to write the number 3 million. Okay, so 3,027,207. All right, now in this case, I don't see anything that says hundredths or thousandths with a THS. So I know that I'm not going to have a decimal point here. So let's start with the 3 million. 3 million has 6 zeros afterwards. Okay, now I'm showing these commas here. You should also show that too. Remember that to enter those commas, let's say I had a decimal point here, I always count 3 and I group those 3 numbers together. I count 3 to the left, group those numbers together as well. So the commas represent groups of 3. Okay, so anyhow, that's 3 million, right? 6 zeros afterwards. Now I have this number 27,000. All right, now I'm not going to put the 27 here. Okay, let me just show you what you might interpret this as, because this would be 270,000, and this is only saying 27,000. So instead of putting that 2 right here, I'm actually going to move it over to right here. So in the place here, I need to keep a 0 there. So this so far would be 3,027,000. So this number here so far is 3,027,000. And again, here the number 27,000, right, has only 3 zeros after it. So that's why we wouldn't want to put 270,000, because that would have, whoops, 4 zeros afterwards. Okay. All right. So far, here's our number. Okay. The last part says 207. Now think of the number 207. 207 would look like this. So I'm going to replace all of these here with the numbers 2, 0, and 7. So my number is 3,027,207. Now the next question is one that I'm going to leave you guys to do. So you guys are going to do problem 3 on your own. So pause the video, try that one, and you're going to check that in when you check in your notes. Okay, another important skill that you're going to be working on is rounding in these skill sheets. So here it is asking us specifically to round to the nearest thousandth. Okay, now that would be the 3rd decimal place. So it's asking us to round to 3 decimal places. Okay, now it depends on the direction. Sometimes it'll ask you to the nearest 10th or 100th or 1000th or 10,000th, but depending on the direction, make sure that you understand which decimal place. So you can always refer back to here, to this chart here, so that you know which decimal place you're supposed to round to. Okay, so back to here. Now, since I'm looking at a number here with a lot more decimal places and I want to run to the 3rd decimal, what I do is I look at the decimal point that's right next to the 3rd decimal. So here I have a 9 here, but I'm going to look to the right to decide if I need to round this up. If this number is larger than 5, okay, so if it is greater than 5, we go up. If it is less than 5, we stay. Okay? So you keep it the same. Now, in this case, 3 is obviously less than 5. It's smaller than 5. So I'm not going to round this up. I'm actually going to keep this number and leave it as 1,302 and 199 thousandths. So the 9 stays the exact same. In B here, again, I want to round to 3 decimal places. Now, my 3rd decimal place here is a 3, so I'm going to look 1 after that. So I actually ignore the 1 completely. I'm just looking at the 7. Since the 7 is greater than 5, I'm going to round up. That means I'm changing the 3 into a 4. So this would be 2.004 or 2 and 4 thousandths. Okay, then part C here, I just wanted to give you a little bit different of a question here. If I round to the nearest thousandth, or the 3rd decimal place here, I'd actually look at 1 to the right, so I'm looking at the 9. Since it is greater than 5, I'm going to round this number up. Now, rounding that number up gives me actually 10, so I can't show 10 though. I'm going to put the 0 here. Then that means I have to round up the next number next to it. Since this is also a 9, I'm going to put a 0 here and carry it one more time to this 2. I'm going to round the 2 up to 3. So now I have 138.3. So this is 138 and 3/10. The fact that you have 2 zeros here, you can fill those in, but really this number would be written or said out loud as 138 and 3/10. Okay? All right, now another important skill for you to work on is filling out a check. So here I have a blank check. Now I'm just going to talk very briefly about what to fill in a check. You might have already written checks before. I think this is a really important skill. Like, I went to college and didn't know how to write my own checks yet because I didn't have a checking account growing up in high school. I wish I had one, but I didn't. So I didn't know how to write a check when I started to have to, pay rent and that kind of thing. So I actually had to ask my roommates how to write a check. Sounds silly, but it's good for you to know how to do this right away so that you can jump right into the real world. Okay, now up at the top here, you've got the date. So there's a couple different ways, obviously, to write the date. Today, for me, it's the 21st, so that's how I'm going to fill in my date. Now this part that says pay to the order of, this is who you're paying. So it might be any company, but let's say you're paying Prospect High School. Here you would write pay to the order of Prospect High School. And here's going to be your amount written in standard notation. Okay, so let's say I'm paying $327. Okay, and 15 cents. If I want to pay $327.15, here in words, I'm going to write that out. So I have 327, and instead of writing dollars or 1500ths, I'm actually going to write this as a fraction. I'm going to put this in cents and show that it's 15 over 100. Now, if this had been $327, just normal, you know, no decimal or no cents, I would write this as 0 over 100. Oops, not 1,000. Okay? So that's how you write out the basics of a check. So you're just going to write that out in words. Down here, this is usually for like a little memo. You can write, maybe you were paying for sports fees or something, and you would write that in here so that you can keep track of what your spending is. And then here, you're going to sign your name. Okay? So those are the different pieces in a check. Now, I would like you guys to try this question here on your own and fill out this check. Here, I've got, in context of a word problem, it says you and your 2 roommates, so be careful here, you and your 2 roommates receive an electric bill. Your bill is totaled at $124.97, and you split the cost evenly, okay? So you're going to fill out your check. You're paying it to ComEd. Make sure that you cover the full amount that you owe, okay? All right, that's the end of the lesson. You guys can fill out this check and then check it in with me so that you can get started on your skill sheets.